few years back, somebody went away to a far distant land such as Rome and picked up a rosary, came back and gave it to me. And it was a very, very thoughtful gesture to receive a rosary from that place. And a few months later, they came up to me and says, "Father, did the rosary work?" I don't know, you have to scratch your head with something like that. And I understand what she meant by it, but the rosary, as well as what we do as Catholics in our prayer, isn't a talisman. It isn't a lucky rabbit's foot. It's something that, of course, we pray the rosary to enter into the mysteries of our Lord's life so that we can better mimic the gospel, his love, mercy, and compassion through the intercession of our Blessed Mother. And coming to Mass, receiving the Eucharist, again, it isn't a lucky rabbit's foot. It's just so we can become more and more conformed to Christ. It isn't one of these things where we try it, and if it doesn't work, if our prayer is not answered, we move on to something else. There has to be something of persistence in our prayer life. Because yes, one day after another, you know what, our prayers may not be answered, but that doesn't mean that the Lord is not listening. In the Gospel, we hear of Simeon and Anna, who were both advanced in years. Simeon, who was long awaiting the coming of the Messiah who was going to redeem Israel. And Anna, who they say waited day and night and prayed in the temple. Last night I was in a weird mood and I called her that crazy church lady, but she wasn't a crazy church lady. She was very persistent in her prayer day and night for the coming of this Messiah, that persistence. This past week we actually had 4 funerals here at St. Mark's, and yesterday, as I was putting together everything for this homily, it was the most beautiful morning. It was probably the most tragic thing that could have happened for this family. But again, it was probably the most beautiful family and beautiful service that we have done here. A 35-year-old overdose. So in preparing for that rash, I wasn't sure, what to expect as far as the emotions of the family. Well, the brother, who was his younger brother, was a 35-year-old neurologist who lives in Greenville, South Carolina. They were both raised at St. Jude's here at Londonderry. And this younger brother was the most faithful, God-filled, Spirit-filled person I've ever met in my entire life, but of course was going through the, I should have done more. In the last couple of weeks, maybe there was something I could have done to save my brother from this happening. And then he went back and he was actually standing at this ambo and told the entire story of what happened. And yes, it was an older brother. They shared a bedroom growing up, and they were best of friends. They knew each other inside and out. But through a chain of events, his older brother ended up getting hooked on alcohol at one point, and then on drugs. Now, the younger brother, throughout his entire life, kept in contact with him every single day. At one point, was able to get him weaned off of alcohol, even though he lost his license through a DWI, lost it for about 10 years. But still, the younger brother never gave up. Called him every day. They were still the best of friends. Eventually, got him through all the fine work and all the classes he needed to take to regain his driver's license. That happened, and they really thought that he was really doing well. And he was even kicking his drug addiction. Again, the brother and the family was so proud. And you meet this family, that they were a glowing, loving family. And again, this can happen to anyone. This can happen to anybody, any family across the entire nation, across the entire world. Well, the younger brother, again, as faithful as he was, said, I never could talk to him about God. I'd bring it up, but he never wanted to hear it, and I wasn't sure if I was reaching him, so I just took the advice of St. Francis that preach the gospel always, but when necessary, use words. But you preach the gospel by your actions. So preach the gospel always by your actions, and if necessary, use words. And so, with this tragic event happening, where they got the call that the brother had overdosed and had passed away, he came back from South Carolina and had to go back to his brother's apartment to clean it out. And always with that question, I want to know where my brother is. What ended up happening to him? Is he up in heaven with God, or where is he? Did my words ever reach him about the salvation of Jesus Christ? So he tells the story of him going into his apartment. And he said, first of all, his Bible was not hard to find. It was readily available, and once he opened it up, it was highlighted all over the place with messages of salvation. And then he read the scripture passage of when did you see Jesus in prison and visit him? When did you see him naked and clothe him? When did you see him and help him? And he realized that he knew full-heartedly that the way that his older brother lived his life, which he represented in his talk, was that he was always for the other. But the 34-year-old neurologist up there said that he was Jesus to me. I sought him out, and I would never let him go. That's why he was so devastated, that he was Jesus in my life. Because whenever we help the least of our brothers and sisters, we do that for Jesus. It was the most beautiful, but that really reined into persistence. Yes, we need to be persistent in prayer. And yes, prayer can get tough, and we can easily say, well, the Lord didn't answer my prayer request, so I'm just going to forget about it. Well, the same thing can happen in our ministry to one another. That if we say, he's still addicted. This is still happening. I'm just going to throw up my hands. He's on his own. No, we are called to give of ourselves the outpouring of our own spirit towards somebody else at all times, like this young man did. And yes, it ended in tragedy, but you know what? Mental illness, addiction, and all sorts of things is such a complex issue. And I know that this young man did everything that he could. He outpoured his entire self to the point that it almost broke him. But thank God that he got that rest assurance that we know where he is. When he opened that Bible and he knows that he gave himself to Jesus Christ, and he was struggling and he was trying. We prayed for Andrew, that young man who did die, and all those that struggle, that they do find Christ, and that through the mercy of God, that they're finally in peace.